Hello, you're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. Because it's more fun to believe. Hey, everybody. Thank you for listening to another experience of, or watching another experience of Me and Paranormal You. As long as, are you okay with this video being up?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we got Matthew Jackson, we got Evel Ogilville, we got the curator of Paraholics, paraholics.com. You can go there, you can check out all kinds of information. You can look into what the hell is Obscurovox. You can
Yeah.
you can you know read very thoughtful, very insightful writings about the world of the paranormal and ITC devices, instrumental transcommunication, which I always tell people when people ask me about ITC, I'm like, well, let me talk to Matt. He's my guy for all things ITC and things of that nature. I was actually just having a conversation with Jim Perry of Euphomet not long ago, and uh, I can't wait for. I don't know if you've touched base with him recently, but I can't wait for you to talk to him the next time if you haven't very, very recently.
I have
Um,
not. No.
there's a real strong Matthew Jackson connection and something that just happened for him. So that'll be exciting. I don't think I'm letting the cat out of the bag, but so that'll be really great when you next time you and Jim link up. But anyway, so
Cool.
we're gonna talk about Florida. We're gonna talk about all the things you got going on. I think we were just talking. You were doing an investigation yesterday, right?
Yes. Yeah. Got invited. My hometown, Columbus, Indiana. I got invited by the actual library, the Bartholomew County Library, to go there and to do an investigation of that building, which is an iconic building. It was designed by famous architect by the name of I.M. Pei, and so it's kind of a landmark building. And Columbus is kind of a conservative town, not really on the haunted radar, so to speak. So I was a little caught off guard when the actual library itself asked me to come in and do an investigation because they've had a few odd things happen, and they wanted me to check it out and be willing to do a presentation on any of my findings that I may have documented, and to show it to the public coming out this summer.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Like basically a two-parter.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So
All
I
for
had a
all out of the goodwill of your heart. And
yeah, yeah, exactly. So I had some friends join me yesterday. Our buddy Gene Caswell, that you know, and then Colin and Bridget. They call themselves Paranormal Cases. They came and helped, and yeah, we gave it a pretty fair shake, I think. And we had an army of librarians kind of cheering us on from the shadows.
yeah,
So it was fun.
that is, one of the most interesting subsets of people, I think, is the librarian.
Yeah,
And because you have to, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, you have to get a degree in library or whatever or whatever it's called to be a
yeah,
librarian. And people who just love knowledge and books and learning and the preservation of such a thing. And to me, it's a really cool profession. I mean, when you're growing up, when you think of a librarian, you just think of someone who likes to shush you, uh, right? You don't
yeah.
understand truly what it means to be a librarian. And I'm sure I'm even making it to td to 2D than what it actually is. um
Well, it was a slight power trip for me because during like the EVP sessions and stuff, to actually have the take the time and have the moment to shush librarians. It's like, you're in my world now, ladies. Shh. I should say ladies. There were guys there too, but it was funny. It was good.
that is funny. The
Yeah.
tables have
I'm
the,
like,
the
who am
tables have
I?
turned.
Who am I?
This is what I've become.
Yeah.
um that's wonderful. The
Yeah.
mark that off the bucket list. The
Done.
So I gotta ask, did you use the new device?
I used version 1.7 of of the device. So I did use it, and had some interesting results. Some definite real time responses that I'm anxious to go back and still review and see what else could be there. So um, yeah, we did a long session with it, and so it was pretty exciting.
That is really cool. I cannot wait to use that again. And
Yes.
it's, it's very exciting because of of the results that happened in Florida while we were there.
Mhm.
Seemingly, I mean, talk about kicking off the whole trip. But without even realizing we kicked it off in such a way until days later,
Yeah.
when you did a solo session with the prototype at the time. And it, very, very anxious and looking forward to sharing those results with people at some point in the future, after we do at the very, I mean, if I had to guess, multiple follow-up trips, um but and hopefully one somewhat soon, depending on scheduling for people. But because people who listen to this show just know I've been railing on about talking to portals lately, and can't believe I didn't remember to do it when we were down there, and didn't occur to me. And there was just so much happening. I mean, if we were all bored off our
Yeah.
ass and like, well, what do we do next? Like, there was never a moment of like, well, there's nothing really to do down here. There was the total opposite of that. But I feel like that is the perfect device to try to establish a conversation with a portal.
I tell you what, the whole time we were down there, we were busy. If we were not reviewing data of some sort that we recorded, things were constantly getting our attention. And so there was really no downtime. I mean, we were up almost every night, all night long, and didn't waste a lot of time rallying in the morning to start either review or our next experiments or collecting specimens or you name it. I mean, I really didn't know what to expect going down to Florida, but I have to say, I mean, it was so good. I mean, for so many reasons, from a paranormal research standpoint and just the people standpoint too. I mean, getting to hang out with everybody and getting to meet the homeowners. I mean, it was awesome. It was so cool, man. And I feel lucky to have been a part of it.
Well, I mean, you definitely kicked things up a notch by being there. So that's 100%. So, we're lucky to have you down there.
All right, thank you.
I'm curious what you think about, in regards to the revisitation of a location for an investigation. And I loved all the syllables and like of that sentence, the revisitation of a location and the investigation. It's like, is Modest Yahoo over here? So I wonder, because I'm just thinking of this, it seems like every time I go back there, I think of, oh man, we should have done this, or oh, it'll be good to have this the next time, right? And then eventually you have a list of 75 different things that you want to do, and it's like, this is untenable, right? But there are certain things that pop up in those thoughts that are like, oh yes, this is something that I definitely would want and need to have for next time, just to have a better, more thorough experiment and investigation overall. Do you find that happens as someone who goes to this, the same location multiple times, which you've done in certain spots? Do you find that that happens a lot for you, and that you have to go to a location multiple times before you even figure out how to really investigate it?
Well, I don't think you could ever totally be prepared for something that's unexplainable. you know, um, it's just like, usually when I've revisited locations, you get like a narrative that you build on because you find out tidbits of information about the location's history and so forth, which sparks ideas or different trigger objects or things that you might use to incite more communication. And with this particular location in Florida, it's so wild. I mean, there's so much coming at it. from, just the possibilities seem endless on what we could be tapping into there. So I think it's probably just a natural thing that every time you go back or any of us go back, we're going to, pain is the teacher, and we're going to have regrets and kick ourselves every time that we leave. But I do think though that we're smart enough and gosh darn it, good looking enough that we're, we're going to slowly build on this thing as we go and come up with better ideas. And yeah, so I know you're making notes on your end. I'm definitely making some on mine as far as like what I want to try to achieve next, or because there are opportunities that I keep thinking, man, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? So it's probably the same for every researcher. But like I said, going into a location like that is just it's just wild. It's bonkers. It's everything.
Yeah, for sure. And I love the Stuart Smalley reference, hat tip
Yeah,
to old school SNL viewers.
yeah.
Gosh darn it. Just look in a mirror and tell yourself these things. The You are good enough and smart enough and good looking enough. I mean, I've got so many things I want to do, and it's a question of, available resources, obviously. And I don't
Mhm,
have, you know, until I win Mega Millions on Tuesday night, I just don't have the resources to be able to do all the things I want. The number one thing I want to do specifically for this location is I do want to, I want to create maps. Now, like not necessarily, I guess you could call it a hotspot map, but ideally it would be a digital map that is shareable through people's devices. And so when people are out in the field or out in the woods or wherever you are on this property, basically you can drop pins, right? And it's like almost like a Google Doc, a shared thing where it updates for everybody in real time.
mhm.
Just to, and I think because doing something like that creates, you create a history and a record of patterns and of potential areas where things are happening. Now I also want to just do like a regular, get a regular map drawn. um so it's on my list of things, right, which I think is
Mhm.
just a good resource going into. So if someone's never been on the property before, now they have a documented history of activity to some degree if they want to dive into it.
Yeah.
um Now, I don't know where something like that exists or how, but I've been trying to look into it a little bit. There's, I don't know, there's something about going to a place like that in Florida where, you just wish there was 48 hours in every day. But
Mhm.
I don't know if there's, I don't know if there's a clear distinction between the types of activity happening there as far as you're concerned. I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are on that, as far as the variety or the scope of what might be going on down there.
Well, I think if I ever was curious, which I have been for some time, about most paranormal phenomena being of like an interdimensional quality, whether it be ghosts or cryptids or UFOs, what have you, aliens. I think this particular location, in my mind, has presented the strongest argument for that potential to be there. Um, because it seems like, a lot of times I like to try to keep things as simple as possible. Like, the simplest way is probably the answer. But in this case, and all the reports and the experiences that we've had and the experiences of the homeowners, it definitely seems like it's this crazy convergence of so many things happening that something as wild as like portals and interdimensional phenomena seem to be like the most plausible explanation for all this, because other than that, you have so many different things that would not be connected. But I think this is all related somehow. I think it's all connected. And so, yeah, I definitely think that, everything belongs there, and it's for that one underlying reason. I really do think that either the veil's thinner, or there are portals opening up, or something is definitely happening there that keeps you guessing. That's for sure.
Yeah, it really does. And, you know, part of me wonders about the strength in numbers as far as, you know, they say don't poke a hornet's nest, but what if you have, you know, 6 people all poking the nest at the same time? Is it even a greater agitation or effect that one can get from that, or is it the same as just one person, maybe
Mm.
playing a pinata with it or something? But who knows?
Yeah, and we're not really for sure if anything that we can do on our end can really guarantee or invoke some sort of like response. Not to say that the phenomena is completely smug within itself, but anything, all of our efforts might even come across so insignificant that there's no incantation or ritual or approach or device that we can really do to actually activate the location. But at the same time, it does seem awfully aware of us. I think it pays attention, but I just you just don't know how deep we can really go.
Yeah, it's interesting. You that's a good insight, because as you were saying that, I'm imagining an ant right now somewhere in the corner of this room I'm staying, or where I am right now, like hollering at me, and I don't hear it, and I don't give a shit about this ant, right? Like I
Yeah,
don't, but then you get about 15 ants together and they all kind of try to establish contact with me. I might be a little more aware of that, or I might notice that. But if those 15 ants, or even that one ant, figured out some kind of incantation, or, which would translate into a communication attempt that I would understand, as far as, like, let's say they figured out how to turn on the music app on my phone or something, right?
yeah,
Which I don't think that's too big of a stretch to think, as far as like a establishing contact ritual or something, right? That we might consider to be a ritual. It's just uh, a better, or an effective way to actually get my attention, or to communicate with me. Or if they somehow figured out how to make a plume of smoke pop up on this desk, I'd be like, what is happening over here? And then I'd see it's just an ant, like on its back legs, like waving at me. I'd be like, oh shit, here we go. Right. Um,
we're like the natives on Skull Island trying to call summons Kong. We're
yeah.
beating our drums. We just need to tie Ed Brown to a tree. I mean,
Yeah. That's but it's funny to, like, to imagine it tied up to a tree like that with, maybe a rose in his mouth. The but it also leads me to this question, because it's one thing to figure out some kind of ritual, or to establish a line of communication, right? With what we're trying to contact. Um and also, just to continue this metaphor a little bit, I am aware of the existence of ants in general, right? And that is a thing, right? Like you're saying that they might, that's not to say that they're obviously probably aware of us, right? But they just don't
Mhm.
pay much mind to us, unless there's something very specific related to us that needs to be paid attention to, right?
Right.
So, like, let's say a bunch of ants are somewhere where they shouldn't be, I'm going to notice that. But even though I just know in general that ants exist, but I don't think about them. But once the communication line is established, now what you have is the problem of understanding communication,
Yeah.
the language barrier, if we want to call it that. So do you think that maybe the biggest obstacle at this point in experiments, research, investigation isn't the ability to establish contact, as much as it is figuring out the actual correct? Do you think we're using the right language just by trying to talk to them? Or do you think we're missing something here?
Probably both are correct. I mean, you could almost take the structures in the woods, the pieces of equipment getting moved or missing, the ITC responses, the possible footprints or impressions in the ground, and just the strangeness of the full body apparitions or anything that we might see on, with our eyes or on night vision. I mean, those all might be forms of communication. It might all be its way of reaching out, trying to express something to us. So, but as far as like throwing everything that we can at it to show that we're open and we're trying to establish communication. I definitely think that we're doing some things and we're doing it different, even because I know you guys did the CE5 protocols after I left. The devices that I brought in, the devices that Eric brought in. I mean, we're laying everything out there, trying to see what might stick. And I think we're trying the best that we can, but we just might have a hard time hearing or reading the room, reading the woods, so to speak. And so I do think something's happening. Like I said, I think we have its attention, but I just don't know if we quite understand what we're trying to decipher.
Yeah, that's interesting. We're going to do a quick break here, and we're going to come back with Matthew Jackson. We're going to talk more about ITC. We're going to talk about these footprints that he just alluded to. And if I have my druthers in post, I'll be able to even throw those in while we're talking about them, maybe the images in the video. So, but just as a reminder, we're going to take a quick break, and patrons, you get commercial free. So it's $3 a month. It gets you no ads on these, these interviews, these experiences, the third year bonuses, all that stuff. So we're going to be right back with more. Am I going to say this is like the biggest breakthrough in paranormal history when we get back? I'm not saying it's not, but I'm not saying it is. And we're back. So, spoiler, I don't think we have the biggest breakthrough in paranormal history that we're getting ready to talk about. But once we talk to portals, maybe we will. So the let's talk about these footprints, because you and I don't have a long history of animal tracking, and I have been studying footprints online, and which is a lot different than being out in the field and studying. And so I'm trying to give myself kind of a crash course in animal print identification and tracking, just to be better at that. But when you and I think we see multiple, and by multiple I don't mean like in the same spot, like something walking, but in a couple different situations, you and I came across something we thought were prints. And I think one or two of them we couldn't even, or one of them I couldn't find. I tried to take Ed Brown out to go look at least two of them. And one of them, I don't think he thought was, potentially had much to it. But there was like one or two others I couldn't find, even though we clearly marked them off with a bunch of sticks, like building squares around them. Those were just, for whatever reason, couldn't find them where we'd marked them off. But particularly underneath this bridge, where there's like a creek running, we were really compelled by this. I remember, and in not an area you're just looking for fun typically, right? Because you're walking over a bridge. So it was underneath our feet necessarily, like, maybe 7-8 feet or whatever it was. Tell me about what you remember, if anything, as far as the details of encountering that print. And I'll try to throw in the photo here. And if not, it'll be over on the Patreon page.
So we were walking one of the trails to pick up equipment that we left overnight, and there was the one bridge that we had to cross, and it's not your normal footbridge; it's more for a tractor. So all the side supports are at a wider width or gap, more so than a normal footbridge. So we were having to pay attention to our where we were placing our feet as we are going across this bridge, so we wouldn't like step through, right? And it's such a beautiful property, and it's not a place where you see litter and trash. And as we're walking across this footbridge, something catches your attention, which I don't think was an accident. I think it was just too weird of a synchronicity, because you look down and it almost looked like maybe the cap of a ball pen or something. I can't remember what it was, but it was just something unnatural and out of place. and you zero in on that and you're like, that's really odd. Why would somebody put that down there or throw something away like that down there, or who, whatever you said. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, yeah, that's weird. And then like right beside it, to me, it looked like this massive footprint in this muddy bank. And I'm like, well, what about the footprint beside it? And that's when we started, geeking out a little bit, like what is happening? And when we even look closer, and we were up above it, above the ground. And as we were looking down at it, when we looked behind it, there was a second track that looked, it was more in the water, and the pool of the water was filling up in the shape of a matching, the opposite foot, but a giant footprint. And so we could see the pool of water, and the light was hitting just right to where we could see all this. And we tried our best to try to measure it, from our phones, but we never went down and tried to get, I mean, it would have been a muddy mess if we would have tried to get down there. And I think the soil would have been too wet to actually cast anything. But it almost appeared like, 1 foot in the water, 1 foot on the muddy bank, and the next footfall would have been up on the dry ground. So there was nothing else that we noticed from that point. But whatever left those prints had really big feet. Because I think when you try to measure it with your phone, I think we were like right at like 19 inches is what you measured.
Yeah, I think
And
so. I think so.
yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's my memory of it.
Yeah, that's a great recollection because I forgot about the thing, the litter or whatever
Mhm.
that initially started that. I didn't even know I couldn't remember how we first, came upon it. Because it is a strange area to have some kind of litter because it was also a little too high up to be part of the water. Like, oh, so it got littered in the creek upstream maybe, and then just kind
Mhm.
of flew down because it seemed it was a little further up the bank than it would have been for the water. But who knows? Maybe after 2 weeks of straight rain, that's a lot higher down there. Anyway, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how something like that could have got there because you don't see litter anywhere out there.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just no litter out there, and not until you start getting to, um, I don't know, maybe over in the hunting areas that are the neighboring properties by the old abandoned rundown cabin, you might find some litter because that's right by the street. But this is far enough back off the roads where litter isn't just blowing in through all the
Oh,
woods. Yeah, that is
yeah.
interesting. The I'm still waiting to get a message from Carolyn about that digital recorder showing up on like their front doorstep. Um, but it because it occurs to me that we talk about this print, and then there was I think one or two other prints that potentially we saw
Mhm.
while we were there. And do you
My
want to talk about?
impression was those two tracks were extremely fresh, and in my imagination, I almost imagine that whatever moved your equipment and so forth, it was almost like it was just right ahead of us and went up the hill and messed up your experiments. And when we were following it as we were going, up the hill. So it was just bizarre,
Yeah,
bizarre.
to me it almost reminds me of, like, say there's like a 7 foot basketball hoop and there's like a 5-year-old who's like, let's play basketball, and the person who's like, okay, but I'm not going to let you win, and every time this kid tries to shoot, you just like swat it, like it's just there's just no chance
Yeah.
for the kid to win, right? And when it comes to some of these things, trying to capture evidence, I feel like we're the kid playing the
Yeah.
grown up who just keeps swatting us away. It's not even hard for them
Right.
to, or the phenomena to thwart us and our efforts in any way whatsoever. It's simple, it's easy, it's child's play for them.
I can see that. Uh, mm, it thinks we're cute, probably, in our efforts.
I hope so. I hope at the very least, I hope it thinks we're cute, right? The oh, look, they're curious. How cute.
Oh, look. they forgot to put Apple tags on their equipment.
Yeah, yeah.
Shucks.
Which reminds me, I'm like, I did think of that the other day. I was like, why would I'm like, I need to, but my thought didn't go so simple and logical. My thought was, I need to buy digital recorders that have GPS,
Mm,
which I, I'm guessing they probably exist, maybe,
I don't know.
um, but who knows? But yeah, just put tags on them. The put tags on everything. So and then nothing will ever disappear again. But I think if we had to characterize the phenomena there, or at least the range of it on this particular trip, it seemed to run the whole gamut.
Oh,
And
completely.
yeah, and it was hard. I mean, because it's like the path to hell is paved with good intentions, is the old saying. And we went down there, specifically with an intention in mind, and and we didn't stick to that necessarily. I mean, we spent more time outside than I really thought we would, like exploring.
Yeah, the focus was supposed to be on the house. We kept getting lured outside, and I don't think that was a mistake either. I think it wanted us away from the house, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, is stuff happening and it's catching our attention and we're being drawn outside during this investigation, or is it distracting us?
Hmm.
So something is actually happening, but it's a decoy. And trying to understand the difference between decoy and getting what you want to be getting, I guess, for a lack of a better way of saying it, that's tough to differentiate for me.
Yeah, 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 definitely. Yeah, it's hard to say. It's like either you're supposed to be out here, outside, or we don't want you inside for a reason, you know? And we had so many crazy things happen in the house when we did pay attention to it. I mean, like Eric and I in the bedroom, uh, investigating. Maybe I should. I mean that moment was crazy. The session I did the first night. I mean, I definitely think there seemed to be an open line available to us in the house that was, very willing to communicate with us. And when you would go outside, though, that's when things would really get like that much more muddied because you just, so many different things from, the orbs to the things in the sky to, portals, cryptids, you name it, you know?
Yeah, and it's the more we talk about it, the more I wish I was there right now. Um,
Yeah,
but it's also like, I have this life I'm supposed to be living,
same.
in doing other things, and maybe making money. That's a novel concept. To try to pay some bills. The um gosh, I just don't know if, when it comes to using like a device like the prototype we were using,
Hmm.
and feeling like maybe there's just really anything in the world to communicate with out here. And part of me wonders if it's a device specific reaction or a result, or if it's a location. Because you and I have talked about this, that I need to try to get out to where you're located. And I think both of us agree that we can probably communicate with the portals. If we're able to communicate with these portals that are on that property, we could do it from your place.
Oh, yeah, I believe so. Yeah. I mean, I've had too much success doing more like controlled sessions, away from, known possible haunted hotspots, with my ITC experiments for me to think that you're anchored to a specific location, and if you want to zero in somewhere else, almost like remote viewing, or if you just want to draw something to you, I definitely think it's possible.
Yeah, remote viewing is yeah, I think you're nailing it on the head with that. I think so. I mean, I don't even know what this would be called, like remote ITC, like yeah, or I don't know what the term would necessarily be for this, and I'm sure people have been doing it, and or people, obviously people do it. This isn't a brand new thing, but the the idea though that you can get information from anywhere, and I know doing previous investigations that started at Post Town, which you and I had major breakthroughs during that specific investigation together,
Hmm.
was the realization that occurred. It's funny because I'm thinking about this now. The realization I had after that was we don't need to be at Post Town to do this investigation.
Right.
That was the realization I had when you and I were together at Post Town, and now it's kind of the same thing. I'm just realizing there's like a coupling of this idea that's related to you specifically.
Yeah, I mean, and it's obviously nothing that I started, but if you go as basic as, and you think of something as like the concept of prayer, we're focusing and sending out our intentions, hoping to receive a message or a blessing or whatever you might be asking for from an external source. So basically, our body being the quote unquote ITC device, and we're reaching out beyond our physical selves trying to receive information. And so I think it's the same with what we're trying to do with like this direct voice experiments that I'm doing now with the prototype and so forth that we used, where, or even if it was a ghost box or whatever tool that we're trying to use, just to push beyond our physical space and try to get some sort of answer, communication, or establish something from well beyond ourselves. I mean, especially when you're trying to reach out to like Procyon or Sirius or those types of things. I mean, that's definitely further than just around the corner, but it's still sending that out there. And if God is an alien, and if people pray to an alien, I mean, their prayers are crossing this interdimensional barrier, or you know what I mean. I'm just trying to think of how you can put it out there for people to kind of grasp. But it might seem fantastic, but people have been trying this for thousands of years. It's just now we have this technology that we're trying to try to these experiments with, and we're getting
Yeah.
results.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting part is the results part. And
Mhm.
the more we talk, the first thing I thought of when you mentioned that, if God is an alien, I'm like, wait, have I been a Scientologist this whole time?
Yes.
Like the weirdest backdoor into Scientology ever. Um, but I think you nailed it on the head when you're talking about the human experience in general. Basically, as I summarize what you just kind of mentioned, pushing beyond ourselves to try to communicate with something else that is out there.
Mhm.
And that's the human experience to a large degree, whether it's on the micro level of trying to push out of our own shyness or fear to talk to another person we've never spoken to, like who's in a room or in a bar or across the room, which is very difficult to do. Like I've never been a person who's like out at a bar or something and just goes up and talks to a stranger. I don't, that's not who I am as a person, or it's not who I have been, I should say. So, so that's the micro level. And now, like, looking for connection,
Mhm.
right? And in that connection, maybe we can ascertain meaning. So, and then on the macro level, it's, shouting to the skies beyond ourselves, trying to talk to God or aliens or whoever to try to make connection, to ascertain meaning. So we think we've got results, right? And I do think I have to do another quick break here. So let's do a quick break. And we come back. I want to talk about the results of our efforts of communication and the meaning that we're deriving from that. if any. So we're going to be right back with Matthew Jackson of Paraholics on the show. Man, we're getting into some deep stuff here. And just as a reminder, patreon.com/Ryan Singer, $3 a month gets you no commercials. Doesn't that sound nice to not have capitalism just blasted in front of your face? Even the streaming networks now are like, oh yeah, you have to pay extra, or we're going to be, because now there's commercials. It's like the only reason we like streaming is because there wasn't commercials. But here's some commercials. Okay, I'm back after that commercial. Or I'm just back because you're a patron. You didn't have to listen to any of that. So you just listened to some awkward silence. And you saw, if you're watching the video, you saw Matthew and I just kind of staring at our computers for a few seconds of silence. There's, a little behind the scenes magic. So in all the years of doing ITC paranormal research, you have been looking for connection with something outside of yourself. That is, that is connected to you, probably, right? But yet you're looking to establish a connection, and in that connection, we believe that we can ascertain, or we can discover, or we can derive, or even, create ourselves some kind of meaning. And maybe that's not even a bad kind of meaning when we have to make it up, because if it's meaning, it's meaning. It doesn't matter where it came from, if you know what I mean. So what kind of we got there on that one. So what kind of meaning do you think, if you've had time to wrap your brain around it, that you've been able to get, not necessarily specifically from the Florida investigation, but maybe so if something pops up, but just in general from the ITC work you've been doing lately?
I think the most astonishing thing that I've received through all my efforts is the amount of personality that comes through my sessions. And it I mean, and I don't think it's all from just like one source. I think, these entities, or whomever I'm in communication with, just the amount of everything from, sass to sadness to happiness to, oh, we're going to give you some information, oh, we have some secrets, to you're not getting anything out of us, to playful, a very playful nature. So that's probably the part that, I mean, you can never guarantee. I mean, you could be asking like, sincere questions about the mysteries of the cosmos, and get back something completely irrelevant and flippant and hilarious at times. I mean, the amount of times I've been put in check through my efforts have just been mind blowing too. But as I've grown as an ITC researcher and experimenter, my main goal is to try to take myself out of the equation of the experiment as much as possible. And that's why I was so like determined, like our first night in Florida, talking to Miss Carolyn about, trying to, do this ITC session in their house. I really wanted a list of questions that I would not have the answers to. So little things like that, little things I put in place, just reassure me that I'm not totally crazy, and it's not totally coming just from my mindscape, and I'm creating this all on my own. So whenever I'm able to get any type of communication that has a information that I did not know, but when I share this, people are able to validate it for me. To me, that's where the reward is right now, as far as like my work goes.
Yeah. I mean, and I've experienced some of that sass with you. I remember
Yeah.
we were doing, what was that farmhouse,
Oh, the Candlelight House.
the Candlelight House.
Yeah.
What a cool place.
Yeah.
And I remember at one point being laughed at for dancing.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about never wanting to get on a dance floor again. When people from the great beyond are laughing at the idea of you dancing,
Yeah.
I mean, talk about like, okay, well, I won't get out of that floor
When
again.
when they're over there going, he needs a beer.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, you
right. I
know,
mean, I mean, that was really, it was really fun, and it
Mhm.
was funny. And
Yeah.
I think maybe that's the biggest surprise for me.
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
know,
because it's kind of reassuring to know that whatever is next for us or whatever it is that we're tapping into, they're probably not too much unlike us in some areas. So to me, if everything was this authoritative, divine, godlike presence, it would be pretty intimidating to even try to approach. But when I don't know, also if you remember in the Candlelight House when our buddy Jeff Bodart was cussed out and he heard it in real time. I mean, that was another just hilarious moment. It's like, what did poor Jeff do? But it's just
yeah,
funny how that sometimes will come across. It was
yeah,
pretty explicit too. I can't wait to release that.
yeah. That was funny, and gosh, yeah. I mean, it makes me realize that there's certain commonalities and there's certain connective things in the universe that are like foundational.
Hmm.
And I do believe that when it comes to the foundations of the universe, I think math and poop jokes, and those are the two things that connect everything and everyone in the universe through space-time together, is math and poop jokes. Because part of me is like, oh man, I need to develop some kind of musical alphabet system that we can use to communicate with spirits or with entities or with whatever can come through these devices. And now I'm thinking maybe I don't need that, right? Maybe I don't need different tones to be different letters or different words, and then you can decipher them, right? Like Morse code. Maybe it just needs to be, poop jokes and fart noises, anything that a baby would do that would make anyone laugh. Maybe that's what we need to get to the other side of the cosmos. We're building bridges through poop and pee.
And this episode is meat brought to you by Meat for You. Not a paid sponsor.
um,
That's hilarious. Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, because let's just say, for example, that ghosts are real, and we're dealing with disincarnate humans, and we're establishing, contact with that. The amount of personalities that we all have, amongst the living. Why wouldn't some of that shine through these various experiments as well?
not only not only that, but on top of that, in addition to it, let's say you're dead and your personality and your consciousness is hanging around because you choose to. It's not like you're stuck here or any of that kind of, you don't need to be crossed over, any of that shit. And then everybody who comes to talk to you is like, do you need help? Like, who are you? You're listening to the same. It's like, that old saying, like, why so serious? Like every time, like, wouldn't that get old after a while?
Oh, completely.
For, you're dead for 60 years and everyone who constantly is coming to talk to you is like, who are you? What do you need to tell us? It's like, hey man, I'm just hanging out. Okay. Like,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
think maybe that's why we get some of that sass and some of that attitude or get cussed out every once in a while, because I think it's realistic. In the framework of this conversation that we're having, it's
yeah.
realistic to say that if you still have personality, or if these things still have their personality, they still will get frustrated,
Mhm.
annoyed, maybe even angry at times. And what is more frustrating than being asked the same question over and over? I almost feel like, I almost feel like these spirits are my ex-girlfriend when I keep saying, what's wrong? And they're like, stop asking me that. You know what I mean? Like that old adage. But
Yeah.
so it's like, so to me, that makes sense. And it seems to maybe, I don't know, give me an idea to reapproach or re-examine my approach when it comes to, communication. Like, let's say we immediately establish communication. Maybe it's a good idea to do a temperature check. Like, hey, are we feeling funny? We feeling serious? We feeling like deep investigation of the mysteries of the universe tonight, or
Yeah.
do you want to just tell me to fuck off? Like, give them some options
Right.
before the conversation goes any further.
Yeah, I almost feel like, especially these, pay to play paranormal locations, the big ones like, Waverly Hills or whatever, where they just have such a huge, traffic of investigators coming through year after year, and night after night, the same things are being experienced by the quote unquote spirits, and yeah, and it's kind of like. Let's talk about the thing that your least fond memory over and over again. Tell me about that time you died. Who wants to talk about that over and over and over, And so that's something that I've been pretty cognizant of for a while, and I've tried to, like, think my way around that. And like with my cabin sessions, I would basically kind of do a temperature check. I would, ask, how are you feeling today, and just to kind of throw that out there, just to see if, yeah, I would get anything back. And it always really amused me when things would devolve into where, basically the message I was getting was, hey, let's quit asking us these questions. Let's play with your dice and your tarot cards, and play some of those games that seem to be more entertaining, and they seem to be more engaged at that versus, me trying to figure out where the lost city of Atlantis is. you know
Another asshole asking us where Atlantis is. I mean, can you believe?
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
and every time we tell them, they don't understand it anyway. So why are we going to keep telling them? Yeah, it is. I mean, with the exception of every ghost ever being a narcissist and only wanting to talk about themselves. And now, listen, we all want to talk about ourselves every once in a while. We every once in a while, all of us are waiting for our turn to talk.
That's right.
But that's just, that doesn't mean you're the worst person who's ever been born. But maybe sometimes these ghosts just want to listen. Like I'm just looking for a ghost that's a good listener. Like, can you imagine you show up, you're like, I only rent paranormal locations so I can, unload all my thoughts and feelings and emotions onto someone who's willing to listen, because they don't really they don't really interrupt
Hey,
me.
we show up in Florida again. I pull up with a car full of Kleenex boxes. It's it's time.
Hey, Ghost, how much time do we have? Because you're going to want to sit down and get comfortable for this. Um, yeah, it is interesting to think about the different personality types, the different moods that they might be in. Now, granted, a ghost probably isn't going to be, short tempered because they're sleepy or hungry, which I believe are two of the most, those are the two big things for human beings while we're alive. If we're in a bad mood, 9 times out of 10, it's, sleep, hunger, or a combination of both. Right. And I think that 10th
Yeah.
time it's because of our feelings. But like someone hurt my feelings, and which happens, but because, I'm a Cancer, so I'm too damn sensitive all the time. Anyway, but it's like, sometimes food hurts my feelings because it didn't taste the way it was supposed to. And I'm like, I think it's a personal attack. Have you ever felt personally attacked by a Whopper? Um, it's like I'm sure that the person who made the Whopper made it with love. Now it's the Whopper making a choice to not taste good for me. Um,
That's funny how many times I've actually recorded ITC responses of "I'm hungry."
really?
Yeah. Yeah, I've got that numerous times, which is always like, is this a metaphor for I'm, attached to something, or attached to my old, human experiences, or what does that really mean? Or are you truly hungry?
That's interesting because I mean, the way you approach it is very thoughtful, and there's meaning there. And because if I'm holding a ghost box or whatever, and it says I'm hungry, I'm like, oh, me too. What should we get to eat? Like I'd be totally thrown off. I'd be like, okay, what do you want to?
Yeah.
You want to get chicken wings? You want to get a portobello sandwich? Or like, what are we doing over here? Um, but to think of it as a metaphor, as see that's interesting. The unpacking of a thing. I just watched The Unbinding with a friend of mine, which is the documentary about the crone that
Yeah.
with the Newkirks and uh it what's and I was we were talking about the film afterwards, and I guess it took me like way too long to even get around to watching it, but a friend of mine had already purchased it or whatever, so we watched it late at night. Then afterwards, I was like, what I like about this and what I like about Hellier is the meaning that gets attached to the things that happen.
Hmm.
And I think that's what's lost in certain, very short window to produce paranormal programming, where there's not a
Yeah.
ton of time in post to even be able to do it. So it's hard to be hateful about it because they're on a very tight schedule. So they don't have the months and months and months to do the research and go in and dig up, oh wow, we realized this meant that, or it's possible that this thing is connected to this, which we had no idea of at the time.
Hmm.
To me, that's when it gets interesting, right?
Yeah.
And compelling. And I mean, there are moments in the moment, which I guess is a weird sentence to say, where it becomes very clear right away what's happening. Like we had that experience with a particular spirit in the house in Florida, where it took a couple days, right? The lag time was only a couple days for us. Didn't even occur to me really until you and I had a conversation about it. Later that night, we do a session with more devices, and the name keeps coming through, and we're like, "Oh my gosh, we've identified who is here."
Hmm.
And it didn't take 6 months of research or looking into the history of the land or things like that, or symbolism or iconography or whatever to be able to figure out who it was.
Right.
So sometimes you get lucky, right? Like that.
Hmm. Yeah, and in that particular case, I mean, he was definitely trying to. I mean, he was yelling at us, trying to get through to us who he was, and I don't think he left, especially once we had the follow up session with the homeowners with us at the time. I mean, I think there was no doubt in anybody's mind who was there and was reaching out to us. Which, and once again, that is the person that I had never met before and I had no experience with or really any foreknowledge on the details of the story. And, as things evolved, we found out there's a lot of details of that story that all of us were unaware of until later. So it was definitely one of those moments for me as an ITC guy where I'm like, wow, that just happened. It was pretty mind blowing.
I almost started crying during the ITC session when I looked over at you after she asked if it was that person.
Hmm.
And because it was one of those profound moments of
Yeah,
wow, of connection,
yeah.
and that it's almost overwhelming when you get hit by the wave of it.
Oh, completely.
He's the first person I saw after my experience there in 2019. When I walked into the house after having a terrifying experience at this property, which you can go back and listen to. I think it's a third year bonus. I think it's 70. I should know, but you can just go back, and if you're wondering what I'm even talking about or where we are talking about, you can go back and listen to an episode entitled "My Encounter with a Sasquatch," and you can go back and you can listen to a very fresh take after I drove across the country from Florida to California and detailed what I experienced. But he was the first person, he was the only person in the kitchen when I came in late at night. He was still awake, I guess waiting for me to get back. And his first words to me were like, "You look like you saw a ghost." So I'm just now realizing it. I'm looking at him as he says, "You look like you saw a ghost." And now,
Yeah,
potentially that's exactly,
yeah,
he's talking about us in that moment, maybe. But so anyway, very, very compelling. And in
I wish I could have seen the look on my face when we kept getting this name, and the moment you explained to me that that person had passed on. I mean, because to me, I was like, what?
Yeah, well, I got to tell everybody that one of the funniest parts of the trip was Matthew does this session on the very first night we're there for 15 minutes, a 15-minute session. So it's not like it's a 2-hour session that we had to go through and listen to. And so Matthew spends the next 2 days during some like afternoon time or whatever, or sometimes at night, scouring through the footage, looking for responses. After that, hands it off to me to do a pass. So I do like a pass or two. And while I'm doing a pass or two, my walkie-talkie just keeps going bonkers at one specific moment of reviewing the footage. And
That's
every
right.
time I went back and rewinded and went to that spot, my walkie-talkie would just kind of go, just go bonkers, which I totally forgot about until just now. Anyway, but listening to the footage, reviewing the footage for 2 days, Matthew's in a chair in the observation deck area of the house with headphones on, and just making noises like, what the fuck? Oh my God. We're all just like hanging out talking about something, and you just hear from the corner of the room, no, oh my God, what the fuck? Are you kidding? And I'm just like, what is happening over there? So then I start reviewing the footage, and you just can't help it. There were times where I'm just like, are you fucking, no, Siri, are you serious? And so for like days, I think wasn't until the fourth night we were there, you presented the session with subtitles and captions on the screen for the responses and things like that for a group of people. There were some friends who also came over to the house, and um, and it was for 4 days it was everybody just being like, when are we going to see this, what's going, because they just heard you and me just being exclaiming like, no way. So everybody's just like, hey, and people were busting my balls all week because they start telling a story, I'd be like, no, 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 don't tell that yet, we gotta wait. And they're like, stop you telling everyone to stop talking the whole time. So but it was bonkers. And it's sessions like that remind me as well, because not every ITC session is like that.
Nope.
And
If it was, I think it was a load of crap.
right, and it would just be like,
Yeah.
oh, you get the most amazing thing every single time.
Yeah.
That seems convenient at the very least.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun. And if people are wondering, sooner or later this device will be available, and I got to talk to your buddy. I got to get him on the mics like ASAP. So we're going to make that happen. We've already talked about making that happen, right? So
Yeah,
that's in the pipeline.
you may not be aware of this, but Joshua, Sean, and I have decided that me and Paranormal U is going to be the exclusive outlet for the premiere of this device once it's ready to go.
I was not aware of this. Are we
Yeah,
talking about like doing a live session,
we could
or
do a
just
live
talking
session.
about or announcing the device?
We could do a combination if we wanted to.
Oh wow. Oh,
Yeah,
that could be pretty wild, right?
yeah.
But at the very least, maybe we could include some excerpts from that first night session, because
Oh yeah.
it was so amazing. I think we got to do that. So
I'm
that would
slowly
be.
putting I'm slowly putting together like a highlight reel that's going to show. I mean, the guy that's developing this, I'm just his canary in the mine shaft, so he's making all the tweaks and adjustments, and I'm the one that's going out and doing experiments with it. So I'm making a highlight reel that I hope at the end of the day is going to show the progression of where we started to the final product, which is he has finished. But in order for me to actually do the experiment to its fullest potential, it requires so much uh, you know, uh, computer power. I'm having to buy a second laptop just to be able to run it. So it's gonna be it's something else. So
So I'm gonna
I
be,
can't wait.
because I want this device, like beyond the shadow of a doubt. I need this device, right? And so,
Yeah.
so what you're telling me is I need to buy 2 laptops.
Well, he's never looked at this as something that he's wanting to like monetize or anything like that. But I think the goal is eventually to be able to create a physical device that he would be able to make for people. So we're just getting started on this whole project.
Wow,
So
that's exciting. And
yeah,
that's exciting news to be the
yeah,
place. Oh, that's awesome.
yeah.
Well, I'm thrilled about that. And, frankly honored, because that device I think is the future, and it is, wow. And people are going to absolutely love it. And, people who are ready to, kick up their investigation a notch or two, I think, and whew, that's really cool. Well, Matthew,
Yeah.
this has been great. And
Thank you.
um, I appreciate you coming on here as always. And, we're going to talk about Florida, or going back, and we're going to talk about other things as well, and talking to portals. So I can't wait to use
Hey,
this device to
yeah,
talk to
thank you for
portals.
having me on, man. It's always a pleasure to get on and talk with you and your audience, and so always appreciate it.
And we're going to have to do another one soon, because we didn't even get into like Obscurovox. We didn't even get into any of that stuff. So, which we'll have to do. So let's remind everybody where they can find you and all the good stuff.
You go to www.obscuravox.com, and that's where I'm slowly posting all my own personal ITC work. And my old site is paraholics.com, where I have a lot of my old investigations and stuff. And I'm also the current curator and caretaker of itcvoices.org. So that's an organic process where I'm trying to put together a timeline and research and everything ITC, and have it there as more of a reference site for people to go and learn about ITC.
Yeah, that's really incredible. And it's a major undertaking.
Huge.
And
Yeah.
yeah, we'll have to get into all of that later. I think that's a whole separate episode, talking about the history of ITC and, the work that was done, that, that now that you're doing there on that site specifically. And hell yeah. Well, dude, this has been great. Thanks
Yeah,
so
thank
much.
you.
And I look forward to chatting again real soon.
Yeah, same here, buddy. Thanks.